Today, our topic is about the schools of Indian psychology, in which we are going to talk about the various, just like the Western schools of psychology, which has psychoanalytical school is there, humanistic school is there. Indian psychology has its own schools, which gives different and various informations that is related to the psychological systems. So if you see, our Indian schools of psychological thoughts is actually differentiated into two major types. One is the Astika type and the other is the Nastika type. Astika type talks about the energy or a power which is beyond human perception, which is existing and which is beyond the normal human perception, and the efforts of human being is to realize this power through various methodologies, to perceive this power by various methodologies, which is more focused on going into oneself, understanding oneself, and going deeper and deeper into understanding the various aspects of consciousness related to the self. Okay, so this is the Astika school. Nastika school, what it talks about is primarily all the power is within the human being, which can be, understood, which can be perceived, and which can be actually realized through normal and with whatever is the observation, whatever is the experiences, it can be actually realized. So this is the difference between Nastika and Astika. In more colloquial terms, Astika talks about something like God, that is a power which is beyond the human being, which is having a lot of influence on the activities and the happenings around the human being. While Nastika talks about is everything is within the human being, and it is because of the human being's relationship to the nature and the needs and the way the sense organs function in association with the needs, that decides the understanding of human psychology. So this is the major differentiation between the Astika and Nastika school. So when you are going to the Astika schools, there are 8 schools which has been part of Astika school. It is over a period of time. See, these are the schools that came into existence over a period of time based on the literature content. Okay. So the first is the Vedic school. You know the 4 types of Vedas: the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharvana Veda, which is supposed to be the most ancient script from India, and it is a collection of a lot of verses, poems, hymns, which has been brought into a single construction called Veda. Okay, so this is the Veda school or Vedic school. The next is the Upanishads. Upanishads is again the literature associated with the Veda, but it is a little different in the sense it is trying to describe human personality, the self, the consciousness in the way of more like a experiential learning, that is stories, happenings. So this and the teachings that is happening in within a story. See this Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these epics are a part of this Upanishads. Next important school is the Sankhya school. Sankhya is one of the oldest school, which is more or less it came into existence during the literature or during the period of Upanishads. And in this school is a very important concept of Indian psychology came into existence. The concept of Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is the nature, physical nature, the emotional nature of a human being, and also the external environment around him. So this is what is Prakriti. And Purusha is the real self within the human being. So this is one of the important concepts that came into that was propagated by the Sankhya school. Then, as a part of Sankhya school, and after development of Sankhya school, came the school of yoga, one of the primary yoga system is the Ashtanga Yoga, the Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, which came into existence. And yoga is seen to be a part of Sankhya school, which is providing solutions to the, or which is actually giving direction, solutions to the human being, the methods that can be adopted to achieve the self-realization. So this is the yoga school. Then at a later stage came the Vedanta school. See, after this Sankhya and Yoga school, there are Mimamsa, then the Nyaya school came into existence, then the Vaisheshika schools came into existence. And because of some of the fault of the individual, and some people, when they just try to take away the credits of the actual scriptures, there was different system that came into existence which questioned these schools. Okay. And those schools were primarily the Nastika schools. And the Nastika school consists primarily of Buddhism, Jainism, and Lokayatra. Okay. But after this Nastika school came into existence also, or which was very popular over a period of time, what actually happened was that some of the theories, some of the limitations which the Nastika school had was later questioned by the scholars who came after that, primarily the Shankaracharya, Ramanuja, who came nearly in the 6th century AD. So during this period, when Buddhism and Jainism were very popular as the primary method of people trying to look for learning and real self-realization and to attain moksha, there were a lot of limitations in these schools, and these limitations were questioned by the scholars who came later, the Shankaracharya and Ramanuja, based on which the Vedanta school came into existence. Again, the Vedanta school is a part of Astika school, and when this Vedanta school came into existence, that had three major areas, which is Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, and Advaita, the three major part of this Vedanta school. We'll be discussing about it. Now, coming to primarily the Astika school, what are the core thoughts of Astika school? And the first school is Vedic school. So, what the Vedic school talks about is the universe evolved out of one core unit. That is, the universe came into existence from one source. Okay. Now you can see that our scientists have been trying to detect a particle which is smaller than the electrons. Electrons is supposed to be the smallest particle identified, and in the past 10 years, not 10 years, the project has happened for nearly 20 years, and nearly 3-4 years back, the researchers came across one of the particles which is smaller than atom, which is supposed to be having the core energy. And this particle was termed as the God particle. And if you see the nature of research by which this particle was identified was that it was based on the Big Bang theory. You know the Big Bang theory. The Big Bang theory is nothing but how our solar system came into existence. There was an explosion of one major energy source from where planets and stars, everything came into existence. So this is the Big Bang theory according to the modern astronomy. Okay. And this was the same method adopted where the researchers tried to stimulate an atom and it was bombarded with another atom and explosion was made to occur, from which the particles were being identified. And this particle was given the name as God particle, which is supposed to be having the energy, which is supposed to be the energy source of the atom, electron, proton, whatever it is. The Vedic school nearly we are talking about the same idea that the universe evolved out of one core unit, and that one core unit cannot be characterized. In the sense, the core unit from which the universe came into existence, all the living beings, non-living beings, and structures of the universe came into existence, that cannot be characterized. In the sense, period of time, our science has taught us to either put things in the as positive or negative. Like in an atom, the electrons are negatively charged and the protons are positively charged, and it is circulating around the nucleus based on the charges, that is the pressure from the charges. So this is what is our science is talking about. But the Vedic system, what it talks about, it does not, it says that the core source from which everything came into existence does not have any qualities or attributes. It is neither positive or negative. Further, what it says is that it holds that continuity or avyavaya bhava and complementarity in various forms of manifestation of reality. That is, this particular core energy source from which the universe came into existence, it holds the continuity of the functioning. It is the again the source of continuity of the functioning of whatever has been whatever has come into existence in the universe, and also it is complementary to the various forms and manifestations of reality. So the energy is not just, I mean, it has the source of energy is one single point, and this source of energy is manifesting in different manner, which is complementing to the what we term as reality. Okay, so this is the one of the core themes of the Vedic thought, and it also talks about of unity in diversity. That is, what it terms is that the Vedic system leads one to an individual to perceive that there may be some differences, but there is no contradiction between the opposites, in the sense the negative and positive has its own energies, okay, which is there may be a diversity, but both are functioning based on the core energy. The core energy which is within themselves, which does not have any characteristics of positive or negative. So the electron has an energy within itself. The proton has energy within itself. Both the energy is functioning in a particular way, and it is different from each other, but we cannot actually contradict as being opposite. Those energies cannot be contradicted as being opposite to one another. So in the sense, the energy is single. It may manifest various forms, but the forms does not contradict each other. It is only complementing each other, which is aiding the overall functioning of the universe. So this is the one of the important thoughts of the Vedic school. Then when it comes to the Upanishad school, shifted from the objective approach of Vedic school to the subjective outside, the world inside, that is self. Okay, that's where the characters were created, stories were created, characters were created, and the characters were given different, I mean, the characters explained with a different types of personality. It had the different type of nature, it had the different way it was behaving. All these were explained through epics and stories. So that was the shift of Upanishad school from the Vedic school. So what the Upanishad school taught about was that there is the infinite depths of self. Okay, the Upanishad school believed only in the infinite depths within oneself, in which the universe is reflected in its totality. So what the Upanishads emphasized was that the world is not outside the individual, it is inside the individual. Okay, so the more it is actually by exploring the infinite depths which we cannot actually clearly define, which we cannot clearly say that this is the limits. So the limitless depth, as one probes into the limitless depths of within oneself, the universe is reflected in its totality. That is how the Upanishad school is a little different from the Vedic school. Okay, and Upanishad school is the one which described the path of inner development. The focus was, I mean, instead of understanding the world, the understanding of how the energy functions in the world, what Upanishad school taught was that it focused on the inner self, and it also described the path for inner development, how a person can develop within himself by focusing on the inward journey, by focusing on introspection or going through oneself and understanding the details. The Upanishads also stress the principles of spirituality to the utmost bound of human existence. So, see, everywhere, even the spirituality, it was limited to the existence of human beings, not beyond the human existence. From the holistic approach of world, the universe, and the energy in the universe, Upanishads brought the focus on the individual self. Okay, then based on this, the diversity of ideas, concepts, visions summarized in the Upanishads became the actual knowledge for generations of thinkers, because this was actually putting it in a more simpler way associated with self, which is most easily realizable. So that is what Upanishad did. It actually simplified the content in Veda into story forms, and also it brought the focus on the self. And this is where the actual Indian psychological schools came into existence in a very strong manner, the focus on self and the focus on developing self. And coming to the next important school, the Sankhya school. The Sankhya school talks about two fundamentally different modes of a being. Our being means of a human being. The two modes are, one is the Purusha, or the unconditioned universal self. A self, or the original self within you, which is not conditioned, which is not materialistically motivated, and which is actually associating itself with the outside world as one, in the sense it is on par with, or it is perceiving that the universe outside and the world within, the person, the self is one, without any distinction. That is what we term as Purusha. Then the Prakriti. Prakriti is the nature. The nature involves both the physical and the emotional nature, the environmental situations, which comprises of the matter, energy, and the agency. So these are the two major modes in which the human beings were supposed to be existing according to Sankhya school. And the actual relationship between this Purusha and Prakriti is the source of understanding the consciousness, understanding the self, and also which can lead to proper self-realization. So what it talks is Prakriti was caused by the material world. Material world in the sense by whatever is logically and tangibly perceivable. That is what is Prakriti, which is your body, which is also your mind, in the sense, as I told in the previous class itself. Mind is supposed to be a subtle material, even though it is not very, which can be observable. Yeah, Prakriti also denotes the materialistic world outside. Okay. Purusha has no cause and does not change. So Purusha is a unconditioned self, which is pure, which is clear, which has no cause and it does not change till it starts interacting with Prakriti. So Purusha remains pure, remains same, remains stable till it starts interacting with the Prakriti. So the changes in the Purusha comes only when it starts interacting with the Prakriti, or the nature, the physical nature, the emotional nature. So this is what Sankhya school says. So what Sankhya school also talks about is that the Purusha remains the observer and enjoyer of the everlasting Prakriti. The status of Purusha is it is an observer and it is also the enjoyer of whatever is happening with its interactions with the Prakriti. The next important school is the Yoga school. So what Yoga school emphasized is that the proper understanding of the relationship and the proper approach to self-realization can happen through systematic practice. And this systematic practice can be done by practicing yoga. What yoga school emphasized was that first, the systematic practice of yoga can lead to cessation of all mental function, in the sense your unnecessary thoughts, unnecessary confusions, unnecessary worries, all these things can be controlled through yogic practice, because of which yoga can bridge the gulf between Purusha and Prakriti. So whatever is the difference between the universal self or Purusha, Prakriti, that is the physical and emotional nature of the person, the differences, the pure self and the conditioned self. So the gulf, the difference can be actually brought down, can be bridged through proper practice of yoga, which can lead to self-realization. So, and this type of self-realization actually helps in liberating the individual from the suffering he is undergoing. One of the most important method which yoga talked about was the Ashtanga yoga, or the 8 levels of yoga. So the 8 levels of systematic yoga practices include Yama. Yama is nothing but that is the first level. So Yama is supposed to be the social discipline by which the yoga school says that it is how you need to restrain yourself from violence, aggressive behavior, from negative behavior such as lying, theft, any type of cheating. So all these areas you need to have a control. What is this? Yama. The second is Niyama. Niyama is nothing but self-discipline. That is building good habits, contentment, purity, studying the content which can give you knowledge, and also meditation on the name of God. Niyama is the self-discipline, how we are going to build good habits and contentment within yourself. So this is Niyama. Then comes asana. So asanas is the body posture, balancing your body. The balancing your body involves the mind and body coordination. So without the concentration, without the focus, you will not be able to maintain a proper balance of the body. Asana is done in a very slow manner. It is not the number of times you use the asana counts, but how slowly and effectively you do it. And when it comes to this effectiveness, we are not just talking about the body balance or the posture you are taking. It is also about how much you need to concentrate to gradually bring your body to that particular posture, and also how you need to follow the appropriate breathing to get the maximum effectiveness. So this is Yogasana or Asana, which we are talking about. The next is Pranayama, is nothing but the breath control, different ways in which you need to breathe. You need to control your breath and breathe in a proper, systematic, controlled manner to get a maximum effectiveness of the air you intake, the maximum results of the air you intake. So this is pranayama. So the more erratic your breathing is, the more problems you will experience. So the more you are able to breathe slowly, the more you are able to have a complete control on how you breathe. That makes your life, your body healthier, and you will be able to live a longer life. So this is the pranayama approach. Then comes the pratyahara. See, all these first 4 levels is at the objective level. What is practically applicable? What is objectively applicable? The next comes the higher level of approach. The higher level of approach, the first level is pratyahara, which is withdrawal of sensory stimulations. See, you are trying to control your responses to the sensory stimulations. You are trying to actually prevent yourself from reacting to the sensory stimulations, which can either be related to pleasure or pain. Any type of sensory stimulations which come through any sources. How much you can actually control yourself and withdraw yourself. The first is actually not reacting to the sensory stimulation, the first level. The second level is not actually taking in the sensory stimulation. Even if the sensory stimulation is around you, you don't actually take it to your mind or your brain for processing. See, you can just explain this particular status in the status of a second level of sleep, that is the alpha level of sleep. The alpha level of sleep, you can many times you can see that you can see that you know what is happening outside. You are getting the messages through your sense organ, but you never react. Nearly, pratyahara is that particular state. Then comes dharana, or where you are going to focus your attention on one single object outside. Dharana is a status where you are going to use some external stimulations to focus your attention. So you are withdrawing from all the things that is happening around in the pratyahara stage. And the next stage in dharana, you are focusing, bringing focus on one particular thing which is available in front of you. Then comes dhyana. Dhyana is the meditation from where the focus on the external thing is shifted to focus inside. So in dhyana, the meditation is focusing on something within yourself, some type of thought, some type of idea, some type of information within yourself, some type of even feeling within yourself. So this is what is dhyana. Dhyana is a meditation where the status of in dharana, the focus is outside. In dhyana, it is turned inwards. So it is some type of thought, some type of information within inside. So this is meditation. And finally, the status of samadhi, which is a deep concentration by which the person is developing the state of self-realization, but at the same time, he is having a complete control over everything around him. Okay, it is not a status of death, but it is a status where you are conscious, but you are unreactive. So that is the status of samadhi. So this is some of the schools.